Hello everyone, I'm Ceri Griffiths and this is KTC Designs, and you may realise I'm a little bit excited. I've got something brand new that I've been working on for a very long time and I want to share it with you. It's the newest addition to the Creative Cake System. Creative Cake System Silicone Embossers. So I want you to take a really good look at these. I want to show you what we can do with them quite briefly because there's so much you can do with them. But if I show you little snippets, and then there's plenty of supporting tutorials out there which I'll talk about as we go along. So, inspiration for these. I wanted to draw something that would help you transfer a design from something onto a sugary surface and you'd be accurate and get it right every single time. So let's look at them individually, shall we? I have a tulip here, and I've dealt with the parrot tulip. Now, when you get any of the silicone embossers, they will have what I call bridges in them. They will be the connecting pieces that we have to have in them to manufacture and package them. What you would need to do is just go in and snip these just to separate them out, because you wouldn't want to use them all in one go. So with this set, I've got 3 tulips, I have 3 leaves. I haven't got stems. I shall tell you how to do that afterwards when I'm doing a brief demonstration on how to do them. Let's look at the next one. So we have peonies. Now everybody loves peonies, and I love the amount of detail I was able to get into these. So I've given you 3 full peonies, 2 half peonies and a couple of leaves, and I'll show you again how we use them and how and why I gave you half peonies as part of that. The next one, and possibly one of my favourites, is the rose. So I've given you a really large rose, so you've got the big feature rose you want. I've given you 3 different size leaves, so you can tuck an individual leaf, or you can actually create a leaf as it would be seen on a rose. And I've got 2 smallers, 1 small one, and I've even put 2 little itty bitty baby buds in there for you as well. Again, as I said before, they all come with this bridge that you would need to cut. Just be careful when you do cut, don't cut too close to your embosser. You may end up hurting it, and that's not the right way to do it, people. And then last, butterflies. Who doesn't love a butterfly? I mean, look at these butterflies. I mean, the amount of detail I got onto these. So you've got 7 butterflies there. I've got them sideways, I've got them front on. Again, all of them have these bridges. Perfect. Just snip them and use them in any way you want. These will also fit on cookies, cupcake toppers, anything you wish. Now, when you first get these, if you flip the packaging over, what I've done is there will be a web address there for you to get a free download, and I've taken my original design work and I flipped it so it's in reverse, and I would recommend printing these off. Print them off onto either paper or light card, and what that will do is it will give you life-size pieces that you can cut out. Now I've just roughly cut these out. You could spend a bit more time with a craft knife, but to be honest, they're a design aid that when I was actually creating these, I found incredibly helpful, because if you turn a rose or any of the molds over, all you have is a flat back, and then you're committing by pressing it into a cake. However, if I have the paper cutouts, I can actually play with, how do I want my bunch of flowers to look? How do I want to fit them all together? How do I want to make this all work as one piece? So I can build anything I want, or I can sort it out and do it on a tabletop before I then commit it to a cake. So that's the joy of these. I can sit the butterfly where I want, so you can see immediately I can build it on a piece of paper, and then I've got that there, and then I pick up the corresponding mold, and because I've reversed the image, whatever I emboss will look exactly the same as I've done with the paper pieces. So something I found very useful. Hopefully you will find it very useful as well. So let's clear these out of the way a little bit. Now, what we've done as we were doing production for these, I have filmed several techniques using this, and there are many more than I've filmed, but I've done the best I can to give you brief tutorials, and I'll take a look at what you can do with them now, and I'll do the individual ones, and then I'll show you the embossers in process. So, first of all, you're absolutely basic. I've called this a gilded line, so what I've done is I've impressed the embosser into the cake surface, and then I've piped with royal icing and painted it gold. Now I've done this on a little plaque just for display purposes only, but you could do this over your whole cake. You could do this on the side, you could do it on the top, you can do it around the top edge. So freehanding that would be quite difficult, And say I wanted 15 of these roses on the cake, this way I can create them and they'll all be uniform and natural looking. Next, let's look at those butterflies. So I did two versions of the butterflies here. One I painted in metallic paint. I think you'll just be able to catch the glimmer of that on camera. And one I painted with dust and I lusted over the top. And if I have time this morning, I will be doing that for you, just to show you it's one of those little feature things. We always say stick a butterfly on it. Well, now you've got 7 extra butterflies to stick on it as well. Let's move on to a time on the tradition, and this works beautifully. Brush embroidery. Now this is just one of the peonies. I think it's this one. And as you can see, I've taken the emboss, put it on there, and then I've used it as my pattern for brush embroidery. So again, I could do that all over a cake. I could do it on the top surface. Some of these are exact size for cookies. They could be the tops of cupcakes. Again, very, very useful. Now, this one, the tulip. Now you notice that there wasn't a stem on the tulip. I will explain how I did the stem, but this was one I just painted with a mixture of alcohol, lemon extract and just dust colours. You could use any medium you want. How amazing would that look if I did all of that in metallics on a black cake and now I painted it with metallics. Really, really beautiful. And you've got 3 tulip heads and you've got several leaves, so you could be really creative with this one. And then last but no means least, one of my favourite techniques is I took them and I just embossed them all over a surface and then I lustered them. So can you imagine doing an entire cake like that, or just making a feature board and then I laid one single rose on top of it, or this could be the top surface of a plaque. So lots and lots and lots of different uses for these. Let's look at using techniques. So I've covered a dummy here, just so I've got a surface to work on. Now when you're embossing onto a surface with these, the surface needs to be soft. So as soon as you've covered your cake, within a few minutes emboss it. If you leave it too long when you emboss, the fondant of the sugar paste will actually have crusted a little bit and then you're going to hit problems. Now, if you have one of the embossers, you could always just press it into the surface by hand. But because this is silicone, I can just take a sugar paste smoother, press it down and it picks it up like a rubber stamp. If you've got a clear smoother, you can obviously use it to see exactly where you're positioning it. So I'm going to tip the cake on the side for this one. So if I push it into the cake and I roll it once to the left and once to the right and lift it off, how amazing is that? Now what I would say is don't roll back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because you'll end up giving yourself double impressions on it. Let's look at coming around the top edge. Let's choose another one, shall we? Let's choose a butterfly. Now, your instincts would probably say, oh, I'm going to pinch it and press both at the same time. Don't, you'll distort the shape. After testing this, I found out either you need to decide to start on the top of the cake or start on the side of the cake. I usually start on the side, so I put it in place with my fingers. I walk my fingers over the butterfly to get a good impression. Then I let the mould, the silicone piece, come away from the cake as I come to the top, and then I peel it away, and there you go. I've got my butterfly pressed onto it. Now the reason I do that is because I've found that if I pinch both at the same time, it distorts the butterfly. So let's move on to the top and let's show you how I did the tulip. So let me pull out a tulip. Where's the tulips? There you go. Here are the tulips. So I'll pull out a parrot tulip, I'll pull out a leaf, and I think that'll be enough for the demonstration. Now, obviously I could lay my paper pieces on here first of all, and that would tell you how it's going to look. So I normally deal with putting the leaves in first, and then I position my tulip. Now I come in with my smoother and I press down. I give it a reasonably firm press, but don't press it so hard that you cut through to the cake. A gentle press will work, but I find it depends on your brand of fondant or sugar base, so how much you have to press. And then I'll put the leaf into play. And there you go. It will naturally pull them off. If it doesn't, you just need to flick it with the edge of your nail and that will pull it up. Now, from here, what I do is I take a veining tool or a similar tool that you like, and I've already started the stem here for you. So I will just rest it in there, and I will draw a stem wherever I want the stem to be. So obviously this gives you the freedom as a designer to put stems curling, intertwining. So I could actually take another one of the tulips, say, let's put him by there. So if I put another tulip in, because the stems are actually freehand, I can then work out where I want the stems to go. And I can work from there. So as you can see, it depends on how you want to work, where you want them, what the design is. You can put in stems wherever you want. It's just helpful. The whole ethos of the Creative Cake system from me was to give you design elements so you can be the artist you are. And by having something like the Silicone Embossers, it means you've got all of the floral elements and the butterfly elements, and you can put them all together and design them in any which way you want. And as you can see, you can use them with dust. You can use them with an airbrush, people, because when you airbrush, that groove you've created is almost like a little barrier, and it captures all of the colour in there as well. So great way to use them. And this is one of those things you'll put in your kit box and you'll keep forever and use them. And especially the butterfly one, people. Seriously, this butterfly one is going to give you so many nice little detailed pieces that you'll use time and time again. Can you imagine a little girl's birthday cake and you've embossed these all over the board before you put the cake on top of them? So enough of me, let's put those by and let's move on to a board I've already done so I can show you a couple of little techniques. So here we go, just a simple board. Now as you can see, I've embossed them. Because it's on a flat surface and not on a cake, it's a little difficult for the camera to pick up, but I wanted to show you them on a flat surface, so hopefully when I lift them up, as you can see, you will see fully what the detail is. Now this section here, I put into this purely because I took the peony embosser, pressed it in. I want you to see what it looked like raw or naked, with nothing on it whatsoever. So if you didn't want to luster it, this is what it would look like. If you were to catch this with an airbrush across the top, you get a very different look to it again. But I'm going to take a bit of kitchen paper. I'm going to pop that under there. And then I'm going to come in, and I've got some pearl luster dust here. Any luster dust will do. Take a little bit of that. And now when I come in, I will try and do half of this and leave the other half empty for you. But as with anything with detail on it, the moment you luster it, it'll come to life. Just burnish it just a little bit more. Let's put the lid on that because I'm notorious for dropping things. So, so now when I pick this up, as you can see now, look at that. How stunning would a satin wedding cake look, completely embossed with that? And you could do a combination. You could do the entire wedding cake like this, then go in with that gilded line work and pipe some of them and maybe touch them off with silver or metallics. Lots and lots of possibilities in that. Also, now you've done this, how about taking the smallest bit of colour, let's just take a little bit of pink, just a tiny little touch on my brush, and I could come in and just put little patches of it on here, clean my brush off a bit, and then work that in, and it'll give you a whole nother look. But because I pearlized it first, that colour will not be a dominant colour, it'll be a hint of a colour. So that is stunning. Before we even start, that's stunning, guys, and I love that. So let's move on to another technique. Now, every one of those boards I did show you, we did film each of them as a tutorial. So if you like the brush embroidery one, there will actually be a full-length brush embroidery video. We've speeded it up a bit because it could be quite boring watching me brush embroidery, but all of the techniques are there. Same as with the butterflies. These two butterflies are the very butterflies I did on screen. So there's a video supporting each of them as we go along, plus obviously there's an instructional video as well on how to use them in the first place. So let's have a little look at this. Let's clear this out of the way. As I said, I'm notorious for dropping stuff, so don't let me drop stuff. Now I'm going to take a little bit of green dust colour. Sorry, little Ian, I probably deafened him with his headset on by clacking that down. He normally tells me off for rattling plastic, so I made sure there's no plastic. So what do I do today? I actually knock something on the desk instead. So I'm going to take a little bit of green dust colour here. Now, you could use edible paints. There are several really good brands of edible paints out there now. You could mix alcohol with a paste or a gel colour. You could mix lemon extract with a dust colour. You could paint with an airbrush. You could paint with airbrush colours. You could paint with metallics. You could paint with cocoa butter. There are so many different mediums out there nowadays that have been cleverly constructed so you can paint with them. So I'm going to take a little bit of this. Just pop that in there. And this is where I cross my fingers and this all goes right. So let's take a paintbrush. Let's take a reasonably large paintbrush because we're not doing too much. So I'm going to mix a little bit of alcohol for me. And I'm just going to put a little bit of lemon extract in. And I use lemon extract because the oil in the lemon extract means that when the alcohol evaporates, it will still have a stickiness to hold it all together. So I've got that on there. Now I can come in here and I can just paint. And I can paint quite quickly because there's a groove around this. I don't have to worry about going into any of the spaces. It's already there. Now with anything, remember where the veining is if you're doing a leaf or a flower or a petal, and try and follow those guidelines that nature would have given you. So I'll colour that bit in as well. Now if I did want to get down into the gap, what I would say is take a little bit of, it's begun to dry out, I would take a little bit of the same colour on a smaller paintbrush, and if I come in from vertical I can actually run the paintbrush in that groove just to finish off the lines. But that's not necessary, but it's something that's an option for you. If you're anything like me, I'm OCD. I like to have nice clean edges. So, and I would use the same principle when painting anything. I would just change my medium. I could be painting with a luster dust or a pearl dust at the moment. So there you go. That's roughly how I would do that. And then if I came in and I want to do the stem, I would just try and do it in one even stroke, because you're likely to get it the first time. You're not likely to get it if you do it the second time. So there you go. So that's how I would work on doing the painted work. Obviously spend a lot more time than I'm doing, because goodness knows I've just thrown that on there. So let's put that to one side so I don't pick it up and make a mistake again. I could then come in and paint onto the tulip, but there you go. Now it depends on how you like to do stuff. Even if I came in again with my pearl dusts, excuse me, let's take this and take a little bit of a dusting brush here. I don't always have to paint. I could come in and just luster into the inside of those guidelines. Now you may think that this actually doesn't give you enough colour, but you'd be surprised how much colour is actually showing up. When I pick this up, once I've finished it, you'll find that dust painting is actually a very, very clever way to get a delicate translucent effect. Obviously I could leave it as it is, or I could just gently steam this to set all the dusts after I've done it. Let's come in with a little more. I like to use pearlized or luster dusts for this type of stuff, because I found that in nature, flowers, although they're not shiny, they do have a bit of a reflective surface to them, especially leaves. So if you're thinking that the dust you're using is a little too shimmery, you can always mix it with some cornflour or cornstarch just to finish it off. So that's my basic. And I'll lift that up for you in a second just so you can see. So, see, that's quite a nice solid colour. So if I wanted a white tulip, that's as far as I would go. But again, if I wanted to pull some colour into this, let's be bold. Let's do a really deep, deep colour on this one. So I'm going to take some really dark peony here, because remember, this is a parrot tulip. So if I come in with some of these, bring the extra colour into this. It's not taking me long, folks. If you were to do this with tracing your design onto the cake, you'd be here quite a while, whereas this is a very commercial, clever and quick way to just go bang and get the design in there. But another thing, every time you do it, the impression you're going to give is identical, which is wonderful when you're talking about a repeated design. So let me just put the lid on that so I don't drop that again, and come in again with some of the pearl or the white satin, and there are plenty of different brands out there, and just blend that in ever so slightly. Let's put the lid on that again so I don't have one of those accidents. Let's take that out of the way. So now as I lift this up, how delicate is that? How beautiful. And you saw that took minutes. Absolutely minutes. So if I was someone that was going into production, I wanted to do cakes in a shop or cakes for cash, I could repeat that on a bar cake. I could carry that theme. That could be the top for cookie or a top for cupcake. Lots of ways of taking this to another level. So let's do a really quick couple of more things, just because I don't want to take so much time, because we've already done all these videos for you people. So let's do a quick finish for our rose. Let's do a quick rose finish. So let's again take a bit of that really dark peony pink that I had, and I come in and I just put that right in the middle. So that's enough of that pink. I'll then take a paler pink and put some around it. Let's put the lid on that again. And then I'll once again take the pearl white that I had, take the excess colour off my brush, and then I'll work from the outside inwards just so I catch the colour, work my way all the way around. And as I said, this could be done with anything from an airbrush down to cocoa painting, down to anything. Right, I'm going to have to blow on this, and I apologise because we know it's not a food and hygiene standard thing, but it is just a display board, and I forgot my little magic puffer to take it off. So there you go. So I now have a completely shaded rose. And that was quick, guys. That was very, very quick. I would say if you're going to do this technique on the side of a cake, make sure you do the tiers separately and do them before you stack them or you put them onto the cake drum. Therefore, any dust that would fall off would fall downwards and not onto the tier below or the drum below. So, there you go. I think that's sorted. I would use similar techniques for each of the following. So just to reiterate, this was it with nothing on at all. This was just raw embossing into the sugar paste of fondant. This was lustered with a pearl or a satin. I then added a hint of colour to it just to pick up that delicate nature of it. This was actually just painted, and I used some alcohol and lemon extract. You can use orange extract. You want to use an extract, not an essence, because the extract will have oils of the citrus fruit in it, whereas an essence is a chemical which won't have. This was just painted with two different sorts of dusts. I pearlized it first in plain white to show you a really delicate ethereal flower. Then I put some stripes of darker colour, and then I shimmered it up again, and that brought it through. The rose, as you saw, start with a darker colour, then do a bit of paler, then just go in with white. And I could use the same principle on the peony, I could use it on the butterfly. And if I look at the butterfly I did for the tutorial, if I can get that quite close to the top, that's exactly how I did the butterfly. The only difference is, for the body and the dots, I just mixed my lemon extract and a brown dust colour just to give you that. So let's move that to one side, take that out. Now, Ceri, how far can you take this, I hear you say? Well, let me lift this cake down for you. Now I'm going to tip this back so hopefully my clever friend Ian can show you. This was actually painted. So I used edible paints on this one. And as you can see, as I said before, I used a metallic on the leaves to make sure it had that shimmer that a leaf would naturally have. So that was the peony one actually used on the cake. Let's have another look at another one, and hopefully I don't drop this either. Tipping upwards. Okay, that's brush embroidery, guys. That's done with two different colours of raw icing, onto the same thing. So if I get any closer, that's probably a lot better for you, isn't it? So as you can see, because I've already done the artwork, I sat there for hours drawing these, you have very detailed practical designs that work for you. Again, let's look at that technique I called the gilded line, and I just pressed the embosser into the cake. I then piped around it in pale yellow in this circumstance. I then dusted each of the roses, and then I painted over the raw icing line. Stunning piece of work, stands out, and everyone says, how do you do that? Well, now you know how I did it. So let's pop him back up there. Now let's look at some butterflies here, shall we? So butterflies, these were all painted with a range of metallics, and I wanted to do metallics because I like the whole shimmer effect. I mean, how stunning is that butterfly there? And because you've got the outline already, and because it's a groove, you'll find your paint will flow easily into those surfaces. Now, I wanted to see what the difference was between doing them with flat paints. So these are non-metallics. So these are really block bold colours. Very reminiscent of animation, but then why not? That's a whole art form in itself. Beautiful, beautiful. And you could pipe them, or you could do some really delicate work with them. Just as a closer look, this is a plaque that I've done for a class that's coming up, but this was all done with two-tone brush embroidery, and all of that texturing is just purely the work of the brush. Now, if you are someone out there who actually works in other mediums. Now, I've developed these for working with sugar, modelling chocolate, anything you can impress a detail into. But say you're a crafter. Say you're a crafter who works with air drying clay, and there's a very big trend at the moment for actually making book covers and making panels and impressing designs into them, and then metallicing them or distressing them with inks or texturing them further. You could take, let's say, you could take the peony here, you could press this into air drying clay, and then what you could do is you could actually take a tool and go in here and actually manipulate more detail into it. So it would end up looking like my brush embroidery, however it would be something that would be in a applique piece, or it would be embedded into the book cover or into your home decor piece. Wonderful, wonderful bit of kit. So one more time, let's have a look at them. So this is Creative Cake System Silicone Embossers Butterflies. This is Creative Cake System Silicone Embossers Rose. This is Creative Cake System Silicone Embossers Peony. This is Creative Cake System Silicone Embossers Tulips. Do you know how hard it was to say that and not make a mess of that? That's all done. Don't forget, on the back of the packaging there will be a link that will always take you through to a free downloadable. The downloadable is a reverse printable scaled version of each of the elements that you can cut out. I'd probably say do them in light card if I was you, and once you've printed them out and cut them out once, just keep them in an envelope and keep them with your embossers. That way you've always got a design aid, so you can play around on a bit of paper or maybe a cake board or a dummy till you get the aesthetics of it right, before you then transfer that design using your embossers directly onto your cake. You can get them from K2 Design's website. Remember, when you go onto the website, if you're in Europe or you're in the UK, just click on the Union Jack, it will give you the British prices. If you go to the American flag, click on that, that will take you to the American prices. I'm so looking forward to seeing what you guys can do with it, which are things maybe I haven't thought of. Remember, just giving yourself impressions on a cake, I mean, it's easily done. I mean, how long would it have taken you to have drawn that, trace it, put the tracing paper on, drawn over it, and then marked all of that with a scribing tool or something? That would take you ages. This took me minutes, and the fact is I can do this and it's uniform on every single one that I do. So, hope you enjoyed those. I'm excited about those. I'm excited about future projects as well with them. Let me know what you think. I really want to see what you're doing, guys. So, thank you very much, and we will see you next time around. Bye-bye from K2 Designs, and goodbye from Ceri Griffiths.